bring the meeting to order, and Mr. Perkins is going to give us the invocation and the pledge.
Almighty God, thank you for your goodness and grace and the blessings you bestow upon us. We ask for your guidance and wisdom in making decisions today. Help us to make them for the best of this community. Help us to do what you would have us do. Help us to operate with a sound mind and a clear heart to do your will. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you. We move now to the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion? Mr. Perkins?
Move the agenda.
Thank you. And Ms. Ritz?
I second.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? If not, please vote. Oh, do I have any additions? Not? Please vote. And it passes 10-0. We move now to approval of the minutes from the April 16th, 2019 meeting on page 5. Do I have a motion?
Move
Mr.
for
Kimball?
approval.
Thank you. And a second? Ms. Booker?
I second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? If not, please vote. Everybody's yellow light on. And it passes 10-0. We move now to open forum. Normally I'm very, very lenient. Today we have a very huge agenda, so I am going to hold the 5 minutes in order. I have one pink slip, and that is Mr. Sahor, David Sahor. Will you please step to the podium and push the little button and the red light will come on to the right. And state your name and address and then your comments, sir.
Sure, my name is David Suhor. My address is 924 East Scott Street, Pensacola. And before I get to my comments, I noticed that you have an agenda change today. After 4 years, you've changed the invocation to after the call to order. I wonder if you'd like to explain why that's happened.
I will let Steve Sorrell explain, but I do believe this was an attorney.
Yes, ma'am. That was at the direction of one of our legal counsel members.
All right, very good. As you know, I've not been allowed to speak through various legally dubious means at this meeting for more than 14 months now. In light of that, I'd ask that you please extend my time to what's needed. I anticipate about 10 minutes.
I'm sorry, sir. I have never not allowed you to speak.
I've been
At the CAC?
yeah.
At the Citizen Advisory Council? I have never. Please let me
I mean,
finish.
I've not been
Please
allowed.
let me finish,
It's
sir.
my time to speak, ma'am. It's my time. Is my
I'm
time
going to
running?
let you speak, but
Okay.
you addressed me and I'm answering. I have never not allowed you to speak at this CAC. This is where the citizens come and listen to the comments by everyone and all of the issues. So I have never not let a citizen come up and speak. Now, we normally allow leniency and allow a little bit more time, but these people have to get home, and this is a very, very long agenda. We have a 5-minute rule, and I'm going to allow you to speak for 5 minutes.
Okay, I've been legally stopped, whether you did it or not. You're a party of that, to that as a board member.
Mr. Perkins.
Ms. Seward, may I say something? We have a very, liberal speaking policy for public forum, and people can come down here, and we have a 5-minute at the beginning and a 5-minute at the end. So that's 10 minutes. If he
Yeah.
needs 10 minutes and would like to use his 10 minutes at the end and move it up to the 5 and not speak at the end,
Yep, that'll work.
I'm okay with that.
That's fine with me.
You wanna
Thank
do
very
that?
much. Can we start my time now that we've gotten that cleared?
Yeah, we will.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
very much. Hanlon's razor says that never attribute to malice that which may be adequately explained by incompetence. I've really been struggling with ECUA's actions over the last 14 months and prior. you have a major problem either with incompetence or malice on the part mostly of Ms. Benson. So what I'd like to do today is sort of summarize 9 acts of malfeasance, that is wrongdoing, especially by a public official. And I have proof of all of these I'd be happy to share with you. At the end of that, I'm going to propose some solutions, if you allow me the time. In February of 2015, I questioned ECOA's invocation policy. I'm not going to go in, that's a whole 5-minute presentation into itself, but basically the fact that this is a non-legislative board means that it's not covered by appropriate SCOTUS Supreme Court jurisprudence. The invocations here are self-given, which represents an endorsement of the religion represented, and the chair calls a rotation. As far as I can tell, there's no official rotation. For a while, there was an official text. As far as I can tell, only Christian-styled prayers are allowed here. That's not defensible on many problems and in many ways. It's basically government leading exclusively Christian prayer. I don't see that it's been any different here at the CAC, but you may want to change that after you hear how Ms. Benson and your former attorney, Mr. Odom, handled this complaint so maliciously and incompetently. In March 2015 began the agenda switcheroo. Ms. Benson moved the call to order, moved the invocation to before the call to order. I asked why. As far as I could tell, this was so it became unofficial. That is, so it's just people praying, as anybody would be allowed to in a public space. She lied, however, and said that it was to accommodate me, even though I objected to this ruse, this switcheroo from the very beginning. Worse yet, she turned off the video. This triggered the video of this part of the meeting to be turned off for 4 years. I still don't know to this day if video from here on will be included in the meeting. And I still don't know why you would hide this prayer from the public record, especially if it's no problem. Ms. Benson said in March of 2015, quote, she did this, she spoke to the board, anything that we can do to prevent a lawsuit or to put us in a better position in a lawsuit, I would like to do. I don't know that that would make a difference. I don't know. Yeah, you sure don't. But rather than discontinuing a tradition, blah, blah, blah. The result was, as I said, people just praying, and it's all unofficial. That's fine, you know. It's an open forum. Anybody can pray here. I get that. You know, it's before the meeting. In April 2017, a couple years later, in an email to Ms. Benson, a constituent asked why this change happened. She said, quote, the change was initiated after a discussion with our board attorney regarding issues of separation of church and state. Well, apparently your new attorney disagrees with that decision and made actually the smart decision to go back and include this. I hope he also suggested that you quit hiding the prayers from your public record. In September of 2017, I decided that I would challenge this. So I gave my own prayer before the meeting at the same volume, actually less than the volume that you speak. And essentially what happened was that I was accused of disturbing the peace, told that I had no right to pray here, or basically that I had no right to speak before the meeting. You essentially demanded silence before the meeting was even called to order. I even suggested, hey, why don't you just call the meeting to order? Ms. Benson decided not to do. Actually, she did call the meeting to order and then immediately recessed it. This is more, as far as I'm concerned, manipulation of the agenda and quite problematic. In fact, what eventually happened was I continued to pray during the time the meeting was not called to order, and I was removed by your security guard, Mr. Johnson, who said, I'll take full responsibility. I'm suggesting that he now do it. The only reason we even have video of that incident is because Ms. Horning was here, and you can look that up yourself, the entire video on the come to order. You could look up under YouTube, ECUA come to order. It'll come right up. Mr. Odom and Ms. Benson said that I was disturbing the peace at that meeting, even though no meeting had begun, and no arrest later happened. I appeared again, and I didn't pray, so I was allowed to speak later. In February 2018 came the big incident. Again, I came and prayed privately, quietly, before the meeting began, with no problem, until Ms. Benson decided, without making the call to order, that she wanted to pray as well. That's fine, I wouldn't have stopped her. She did insist that I be silenced, however, before the meeting started, that I be silent. Can you imagine that if you're sitting here before the meeting and someone says to you, sir, you have to be silent. The meeting hadn't started, but we're going to pray in this open public forum unofficially, and no one else is allowed. Then they brought in a deputy after this. Again, it's all on video because I recorded it, not because you did. I even spoke with him before and have that on video. He insisted he would trespass me if I, quote, interrupted the prayer here. A public records request showed before that no written authorization for my arrest was issued prior. Ms. Benson basically ordered, and I'm quoting her, my unlawful arrest when she said, quote, I would like him removed. This was, as I said, a wrongful arrest, resulted in trespassing and resisting arrest charges, which I eventually, after much to do, was acquitted of. The sheriff, by the way, sheriff's officer you hired for that, is no longer at the Escambia County Sheriff's Office, and he refused to testify at the hearing. March 2018, Mr. Sorrell issued a trespass warrant, misspelled, by emailed, misserved, and without my name on it, only on the file. Again, too little, too late. You can't issue a trespass warning for somebody after they've been arrested. But that kept me from coming to these meetings, which also, because it came with a threat that I would be arrested on site. That, my friends, is a violation of the Government in the Sunshine Law, which says that these meetings are open to the public. In fact, my trespass warning was later invalidated, and so you know that that's, and removed by this board, by the board's attorney. In August 2018, we finally had my trial. Ms. Benson, excuse me, this was a judge trial. There was no jury. We chose this because we thought the judge would know the law better than a jury were. Instead, Judge William ignored the statutes and decided this case was going to be all about whether or not I was asked to leave. Not about whether trespass warning, not about whether I provided a threat to public safety. Worse yet, Ms. Benson repeated lies, several lies, to the judge to meet her incorrect burden of proof, and she exaggerated terribly. I've sent board members all of these quotes, but I'd like to tell you some of the things that she said that were absolute lies, and by the way, are proven to be absolute lies by video I have from my point of view. Ms. Benson said, quote, that we asked him to be silent and he did not, and that he was asked to leave. Quote, I asked him to leave several times. That simply didn't happen. I wasn't even asked to leave once, and that's not the burden of proof anyway. She also testified under oath that I, quote, spoke loudly and so loudly that we could not continue. It was disruptive. She could have prayed at any time. I never stopped her. She stopped me. That I became, quote, very disruptive and that we could not continue. I already said that. That I simply dominated the room and was making a scene still before the meeting. Again, proven on video, patently false. That I said, quote, I demand to be heard, or some such as that no one could talk. In this case, she was agreeing with Judge Williams. Again, simply did not happen. That I made, quote, very threatening innuendo. If you consider someone saying the Lord's Prayer is a threat, or any prayer is a threat, this board is also guilty of threatening.
Mr. Sawyer, you have another minute, please.
Thank you so
Wrap
much.
it up.
I have many more comments. It's a shame I won't be able to continue. But the ECUA's, she also said that the ECUA's prayer is part of a process or continuum of the meeting, which absolutely is not. It occurs before the meeting on purpose by Ms. Benson's design for the prior 4 years. She later testified that the meeting begins at the call to order, which invalidated all of that. That was just the trial. We had a motion for acquittal, and we had another time before the judge. And gosh, you know, I'm just going to run out of time. You know, what it basically boils down to is the malfeasance and the ridiculousness here. I have some solutions for. If you allow me, I'll continue. And,
We allowed 10 minutes.
We
We have
allowed-
another 10 minutes on Thursday.
yeah,
at
well,
our
I've
next
been allowed
meeting.
for 14
We'll-
months.
We welcome you
to
back
speak
for
here.
10 minutes every meeting we have.
All right. Well, in that case, I will continue.
No,
The
I'm
next
sorry.
opportunity.
Okay, that's fine. We'll be here next week. Thank you.
It's a shame because
Sir,
in the interim,
sir, that's
I'll be able
it.
to press charges.
Thank you. We move now to item F, Ellison Customer Service Building Flashing Repairs on page 10. Do I have a motion? Ms. Benson?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions? If not, please vote. And it passes 10-0. We move now to item G, Sole Source Purchase Central Water Reclamation Facility Variable Frequency Drive VFD Upgrade on page 13.
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Ms. Ritz?
I second.
Thank you. Do I have any discussion or comments? If not, please vote. Everybody's yellow light on? And it passes 10-0. No need to be sorry. These things are hard to press sometimes. Move now to item H, award a bid on Highway 29 Becks Lake Utility Relocation. That's on page 16. Do I have a motion?
Move the staff recommendation.
Thank you, Ms. Ben. Did want to say one thing on, Ms. Booker? You second? Okay. Ms. Ben, Ms. Booker. I did want to say one thing on this. It was not 3, page 2. I think it says 3, the low bid. It was actually quotes, not bids. You want to explain that, Steve?
Yes, ma'am, it's more of a technical difference than anything else, but we didn't formally bid it. We found the contractor to do this kind of work. FDOT's in a hurry, so we actually got 3 quotes. So it is competitive, and if you look at the prices, we got a really good bid. So bottom line is they're just quotes instead of a formal bid.
Thank you. I'm sure the community out there is going to be so happy when all this 29 work is done. If no further questions or comments, please vote. Thank you, Justin. Make sure your yellow dot is on. And it passes 10-0. We move now to item I, which is an award of bid for grounds maintenance at the water wells on page 19, and there's a tabulation on page 22. Do I have a motion?
I'll move the staff recommendation.
I'll
Mr.
second.
Kimball and Ms. Ben, thank you. Are there any comments? Mr. Hammer?
Who is our current or facility company that's doing it, and what is the cost to us today?
Mr. Sorrell?
I don't know exactly what the cost is today, but I think it was Executive Landscaping.
Yeah.
And they selected not to continue with their work, so we competitively bid it.
I imagine with all the development, a lot of these landscapers are busy. Any further questions? If not, please vote. And it passes 10-0.
Madam Chairman?
Yes, ma'am.
And the other thing that's happening is labor shortage is just
Oh, yeah.
really hitting that industry right now.
Labor shortage is hitting everybody right now. Yeah. Move now to item J, award a bid for the 2019-17 ground maintenance for the Central Water Reclamation Facility Regional Lift Stations and Gilmard Street Storage Tank on page 23. And it looks like the same company, Escape.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions, Ms.
I have-
Ritz?
I have a question. I remember a few years ago, there was talk about goats being allowed to mow the central water reclamation facility. Whatever happened to that
Mr. Searle.
suggestion?
Some of the microphones are on. I think you need to turn those off. We're getting
Yeah.
feedback. Randy, I think
think
yours
it's
is on. Yeah, I think we're getting, it's too sensitive. Bottom line is, we used the goats when they were available. It's my understanding they have been sold. FDOT used them a lot, but the person that had them has sold the goats, and they're no longer available for grounds maintenance.
Even the goats have jobs. Mr. Ponson?
Is there a way to verify these people have the capacity to do this? I don't know of them. Are they a new company? Do they have the capacity to add this much work?
Mr. Sorrell?
Well, we bid it separately purposely to, really to try to give an opportunity to save money, but secondly was to give an opportunity for two small companies to possibly get the award. The same company got it in this case. The work that we did and their background seems to indicate that they do, but if they get to the point where they can't, we'll cancel their bid and go ahead and award it to the second bidder. And if you look at it, the bids are very, very close. There's only a few $100s apart. So it shouldn't be a problem for us.
Thank you, Randy. That's a great question. I just want to say that I sat by your mother at the baseball game. Mother-in-law, yeah. She's a very nice lady. She said, "You know my son-in-law?" I was like, "Yeah, I do." Miss Kevin Hammer. Sorry about that. First time in his life he's ever been called Miss.
I've been called much worse before. And by no means am I making any accusations by what I'm about to say. It's just an inquiry is all. So usually when I see bids, they're in multiples of probably like 500. So when I saw that, I was like, that's a little weird. Almost as if, hey, just bid a little under. And I'm not saying, it just kind of caught my eye of, it's a little weird bid.
Mr. Perkins.
If I bid on something at auction, I try to bid a little bit under a certain level just to try to win the bid. So it may be that's what went on there. But
I'm not
I think
a bidder,
it's
so yeah.
probably a strategic thing by them.
Mr.
When I
Ponce.
bid work, it always ends in 777. So a lot of people have something they do. Yeah, I would never do it on an even number. But that's just, there's no reason for it other than just me.
No, that's 777. No, that's a sign of a slot machine. Yeah, 666 is the devil.
Comes out to that.
Oh, I'm not going to touch that. Ms. Schneier.
What all is involved in the grounds maintenance? It just seems like a lot to me. Are they just mowing the grass once a week?
Good question, Mr. Sorrell.
Yes, they're mowing and cleaning and so on, but sounds like a lot, but there's 400 lift stations. I'll give you some idea. So it's a huge amount of work, and this is a very competitive price from what we've seen before. So I think this is a good bid, and it's just a matter of whether the company can do the work like Randy said.
I pay probably about $1,200 a year or more for my yard, so, $1,000 for a yard, 56 for 400 lift stations doesn't seem like a lot when you think about the scope of it. But any further questions, comments? If not, please vote. Good questions. Trying to get my husband to move to a condo. So when you add all that little bitty things up, you might as well have and it passes 10-0. Yeah, you might as well have a maintenance fee. All right, move to item K, which is sanitation cart maintenance on page 26. Do I have a motion?
Move the staff recommendation.
Ms. Ben, thank you. Have a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Kimball. Randy, would you like to just tell us about this?
I was about to ask what a sanitation cart was.
May I say something beforehand so that
Yes,
you can?
yeah, Ms. Benson.
I'm always reluctant to take something out of a contract and put it into employees because of all of the costs of employees. So I'll be interested to know the rationale behind this and how the numbers work. I trust that they do. I'd just like to hear them.
That's exactly why I asked that Randy would.
Okay. Prior to us awarding the bid to Otto in 2006, ECUA did this service in-house. We provided it in-house. At the time, we were able to piggyback off a bid from Plano, Texas that allowed us to do it cheaper based on that bid. Otto has had the contract since 2006. Several renewals were approved by the board. Their contract is up at the end of this year, so we decided to go out to bid. There were no more renewals on the contract. Got the bid prices back in, looked at it, and determined that we could do it cheaper in-house again. It's based on a per cart rate, and with the number of carts we now have in the field, we feel like we can do it at a lower cost in-house and go back to what we were doing in 2006.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
Oh, well, yeah. Are we finding it, are we able to get employees to do what, this appears to be fairly menial work? Are we having any problem attracting employees and retaining employees for this kind of work?
This will actually be easier work than our yard trash work. We'll probably have some people want to come off of yard trash to do this kind of work. We are looking at this as a way to have some additional drivers on staff that we can use as a pool for filling in when needed. So that is a benefit to us doing it in-house. We also feel like we'll have better control over when the service is provided to the customers and you know, so there's some benefits to us bringing them back in-house.
Well, and that makes sense if that increases the pool of drivers. Thank you.
Thank you. Good questions. Ms. Ben?
And that was my comment, was because I think there's some difficulty sometimes with drivers and shortages and so forth. That stood out to me as a positive in doing it this way, bringing it in-house.
Yes, ma'am, that's exactly what we discussed when we talked about bringing it in-house.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hammer?
I agree. I think bringing it in-house is you have total control over, but I have two questions though. The first one is what made ECUA go away from doing it themselves in 2006?
It was just the price was so appealing on the piggyback contract that we were presented with that it made a lot of sense to do it at that point.
Okay. And the last question is, you can understand I'm a numbers guy, so being a finance major. So when I look at the salary, is that salary, and I get it, it's 9 people, each one's gonna be a little bit different, but 50 grand a piece, right? Does that include all the extras such as, we're gonna find out later, FICA tax, disability insurance, all that? That's all
That's
part of that?
everything, including their incentives.
Okay, that was my question.
Benefits as well, right?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Great questions. And we can always go back if it doesn't work, so. Any further questions or comments? Not, please vote. And it passes 10-0. Yeah, you might as well stay there. We move now to item L, which is the purchase of a dryer Eurodrive gearbox assembly on page 29. Do I have a motion? This is probably Jerry's.
I'll move the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz?
Second.
Thank you. Do I have any questions, comments? If not, please vote. And it passes 10-0. We move now to item M, and Mr. Rudd, would you please step back? I was so excited. I called him this morning. Do I have a motion?
Enthusiastically so move.
Thank you, Ms. Benson. Do I have a second? Ms. Booker?
A second.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, Randy, tell us about rooteware and if it's gonna work. Routeware, rooteware, sorry. I'm having a,
Yes, this will be the fourth onboard system that the sanitation department has piloted. The three previous versions didn't live up to their expectations. We've done a lot of research, found Routeware. They've got a very good reputation in the industry. So we'd like to do this 90-day pilot program for the just under $20,000, which we will be credited back if we decide to go forward with the program after the 90-day pilot period. What this system will do is basically all the routes will be loaded into an onboard computer that each driver will have in the cab. And one of the neat things about this system is if the everyday driver, they pull them a little bit differently than the computer normally tells them to pull it. The drivers know where all the school zones are and what time to avoid those areas and dead ends and all, some things that the computer just doesn't pick up. This system will actually track the way the normal driver pulls a route and then replay that if we put a relief driver in to pull that route on a certain day. So it'll tell him exactly turn by turn how the normal driver pulls that route. Wouldn't sound like a big deal, but it is. We've got customers that if their truck is normally there at 2 o'clock and it's not there at 2 o'clock, they start calling, wanting to know why. So we try to get drivers to pull the routes as similar each week as possible to cut down on those kind of calls. Another really neat feature of this is it actually takes a picture of every can that is not out. A driver will push a button. If he gets to a location, the can's not out. That gets transferred over to the customer service system. The customer service rep that customer calls in later can actually email them the photo of their can setting up by their house. So it should eliminate a lot of reports of missed pickup. Similar situations, if they have a bunch of material around the can, when we dump it and they refill it, we will know they did that. If they've got lumber sticking 8 feet above the can, we will know that as well. It will give us a very good documentation of what the drivers are experiencing out on the route. Some other benefits is that the system talks to the garbage trucks basically, and if there's a problem developing, it'll email the shop before the driver even knows about it. So it is a very high-tech system. We're excited to give it a try. It's got multiple benefits, and we're excited about it.
thank you. Ms. Benson?
Well, I'm thrilled that you're doing it. We
Yeah.
talked about this last year, and I thought, gosh, why don't they have GPS like we have? And then you explained the complications, so I'm glad you have found a vendor that will do this. And it should save on some training costs, I would assume, when you transition.
Yeah, with the turnover in our drivers, it only takes about 2 weeks to train a driver to operate the truck, but it's learning the routes that takes
Right.
a lot of time. Most routes consist of about 500 streets. They have to keep turning right because that's the side of the truck the arm is on. So it's pretty complicated, particularly for someone that's not done that before. That's the beauty of this system. It gives them turn-by-turn directions. It will even tell them at the end of the day, did you dump every can you're supposed to or not? So it'll help with the missed pickups and the training the new drivers immensely.
Great. One question. It says that it covers all of Escambia County. Is there any, so it will not include Santa Rosa County or any other place
What we're
that would go?
proposing is just putting this on the Escambia trucks to begin with.
but it could expand.
Yes, yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Congratulations on finding this. I hope it works.
Thank you. Mr. Ponson?
So what did the other systems not do well?
The biggest problem we found in every other system was the routing. We would load our computer-generated routes into their system, and they could not keep them straight. There was one system for whatever reason, it did find 3 out of the 4 days we pick up, but the 4th day it could never get the routes properly in the system. So that was the biggest issue with all the others. This is one that talking to their other customers, it is the only one that they've said the breadcrumb trail process, which is the important part for allowing a driver that doesn't know the route to follow. This is the only one we found that other customers are saying it actually works the way it's advertised.
Mr. Kimball?
I would assume that this is going, I want to check, this will integrate with the new ERP software that's going in and everything
Yes.
else. Okay.
Great question. Ms. Ritz?
Has there been any documented downtime on these computer modules?
It's basically a small tablet, basically like you can buy in any computer store. We will have some backup tablets in case there's a problem, and it's very easy to switch them out. In fact, if we have some spare tablets, and for example, we have a truck breakdown on a route, we can send out spare drivers, and the system will actually tell those spare drivers that are helping the truck that is broken down which cans on that route have been picked up and which ones haven't. So it eliminates confusion. Right now, the drivers just have to tell each other, I picked up X street and whatever, and that leads to some misses sometimes. So this computer system will actually account for that.
Mr. Hammer?
Couple questions. One is, what happens if you get, 90 days in, you're like, this thing stinks? Where's the 19 grand go? Does it come back to you?
No.
Or we eat it? Okay.
Yep.
300,000 to purchase it seems awful high, and then in addition, we pay 70 grand a year?
Yeah, the majority of that 70,000 a year is the cell charges that transfer all the data back and forth to the trucks. Each truck will be equipped with a cell card, and that's where most of that 70,000 a year comes from. The technology is expensive, but it's comparable to the other systems we've looked at.
Mr. Perkins?
I don't know if you've chosen the pilot areas, but River Gardens is an area that, I've had a lot of missed pickups.
I was thinking Southwood sounded good to me.
all the streets are real winding in there. It's a hard route, and we've had driver turnover, and so I've had a lot of grief about missed pickups in there, but that would be a good beta site. I mean, it really tests out the quality of the things. And I tell you, Pensacola is not an easy area for a lot of the streets have 5 different names. I mean, the street I live on is actually Dunwoody on one street, and then there's another totally different street over that's Dunwoody as well, but it's just different address numbers. So, I mean, I have people all the time try to come to me by plugging in their data, and they end up on the other Dunwoody. So it's really, we are not a model community as far as urban planning, so if the thing can do it here, it can basically do it anywhere.
Ms. Benson?
And if I might respond to Mr. Hammer, we on the board get complaints when there are missed pickups, and that's the majority of the calls that we get are because of missed pickups. And we have heard from Mr. Rudd that it takes so long for drivers to learn these routes. And they're one-way streets, they're cul-de-sacs, there's only one side that they can lift them. And if we can eliminate most of these by software, it is worth what we're paying for it. Yes, we'd love for it to be cheaper, but I think we recoup those costs in efficiencies.
Well,
Thank you, Mr. Perkins.
and from what I understand, a lot of this software actually has route guidance stuff that saves money on fuels and left-hand turns and all that stuff too. So it actually, could pay for itself, or partially pay for
Yeah,
itself. you know.
we're hoping that we see some reduced overtime. You know, it's just hard to put a number on that until we see how the system works.
Thank you. Mr. Kimball?
Well, and it would also save on having to go back out on missed calls. Like my mom, if I don't have to hear my mom tell me that her can has been missed again, that'd be wonderful. But she's literally the last house in Florida, so to send somebody back all the way out there, it's a heck of a trek.
She calls you, not me.
Yeah, you're lucky.
That's pretty cool. Thank you. No further questions? Thank you, Randy. Yeah, we're all praying that this works very, very well. No further questions. Please vote. Okay. And it passes 10-0. We move now to item N, which is approval for professional services of Pensacola Bay Water Main Evaluation. Mr. Perkins?
Move the recommendation.
Thank you. Have a second?
Second?
Ms. Ben, thank you. Do we have any questions? If not, please vote.
It's kind of like having a colonoscopy. It's like, boy, I hope they don't find anything, you know.
Oh, that's funny. We got a funny board today. We move now to, and it passes 10-0. We move now to item O, which is group benefits fiscal year 2020. Is anybody going to sing? Do I have a motion?
I move the staff recommendation.
I figured you would. Ms. Benson?
And I'll second it.
Anybody have any questions or you're afraid to ask?
So I just wanted to commend staff for doing such a great job. So, I mean, to get a decrease with the size and makeup of this group is truly, truly something to be commended. So they've done a great job. I spoke with Kim earlier today about it. Only thing I would say is the TPA has changed how they do their rating, and I would just say that, you know, getting something from them and writing to say that they're going to continue doing it the way they did it this past year would be my only suggestion, but otherwise, hats off, good job.
Any further comments? I agree, Kim. Staff, great job. Thank you very much. Please vote. Oh, Ms. Benson?
Well, and employees too, great
Oh,
job. I mean, if
yeah,
our
employees
claims are
too.
down, this is,
That's true.
all of the employees are part of that, so.
Everybody keeping those costs down. Yeah, we have a great group.
I had to quit using smokeless tobacco because
Make sure, did we pass? 10-0. Move now to item P, workers' compensation insurance, third-party administrative services. Do I have,
I'll move for that approval too.
thank you very much, Ms. Kimball, Mr. Kimball? Calling everybody miss today. Do you have a second?
I'll second that one.
Ms. Ben, thank you. Any questions? Mr. Kimball?
Kudos again. So they're doing a great job. I think this TPA has done a great job of managing things from what I understand, and I think you know, based on what ECUA is, I mean, I look at workers' comp all day long, and so the fact of seeing the trend and the cost where things are at, staff's doing a great job of managing that. So good job.
Thank you, Mr. Kimball. I knew somehow today you were going to be very happy. Please vote. And it passes 11-0. Welcome, Mr. Walker, Dr. Walker. Nice to see you. We move now to item Q, the operating budget, and we are going to have presentations. Ms. Benson?
Ms. Campbell, while finance is coming up,
Yeah.
I think for several years I asked for this kind of a format where we have goals, measurable goals, and look at what we've done the last year and so forth. Finance nailed it.
Yes, they did.
This is exactly what I was hoping to find. They looked at their accomplishments from last year and what they had proposed. They didn't meet all of them, and I think that's good because we ought to have stretch goals. And if we don't meet them, I'd rather have that than goals that are so easy that it's a no-brainer. But everything about this is measurable, it's concrete, and it's thoughtful, and I really appreciate this report that you've done.
Thank you. I think we all appreciate the format of these reports that we're getting. Thank you very much, and good job. All right, Patty. you wanna-
Okay, so first we'll talk about finance's budget request. First, I'd like to kind of go over what functions finance does for ECUA. We process payroll for over 600 employees. We process all of the accounts payables. We audit, we audit each one of the invoices that comes in and make sure that it has proper signatures and authority and that it's been received and, that kind of thing. So we make all those payments. We track the capital assets, inventory them every year. We go out and physically put eyes on every piece of tagged equipment that's been bought as a capital asset. We're required to do that by state statute, and we do that each year. We develop the budget and monitor it for compliance. We track project accounting as the engineers and other departments have these capital improvement projects. We are tracking in the project accounting ledger for budget and cash flow monitoring on those projects. We have the purchasing division, which does all the bids and contract management in conjunction with the departments as they put together their bids. Purchasing then puts them out and advertises them. We do billing and revenue collection, and part of that, of course, is meter reading. And then we do financial reporting, different reports that we provide to the board. We also have various reports that we give to the state, and of course our comprehensive annual financial report, which we prepare after the audit each year. So that's kind of in a nutshell what we do. We're not a revenue generating department, we're a service department, and all of the departments and staff within ECUA are our customers. And that's how we try to look at it, and that's how we try to operate. So as Ms. Benson mentioned, some of the accomplishments that we've had to date, we have a 1% increase over this same time period last fiscal year of getting vendors to register to be paid electronically. We had hoped to see a 5% increase in that. We're not quite there yet. So hopefully before now and the end of the fiscal year, we will be able to get a few more signed up. With our new ERP system coming, that we're really going to push for vendors to sign up through the vendor self-portal that'll be coming online with the new ERP. And that way vendors can sign up to do their bids online. They can look at bids that are out there and available. They can see their payments as they're processed. They'd be able to log on once they register as a vendor, and they'd be able to see what payments have been made. They can submit their invoices to us electronically and get paid electronically. So that is going to be a big push for us as we go into the new fiscal year. For our billing division, we're very close to reaching our 10% increase goal for customers that are paying online. Right now, we have experienced an 8.32% over this same time period as last year. So we're hoping to get to 10% by the end of the fiscal year, and then we'd also like to try to continue on that trend and for 2020 and also do a 10% increase in that. Okay, so our budget request, The main thing that we're requesting is an increase this year. We'd like to request 2 new people for the billing division, one to be a utility billing specialist and one who would be capable or have the skills to be a meter reader. And the reason for this is we have narrowed those parameters on our billing reports to try to be able to examine more thoroughly the exceptions that are coming out in somebody's bill, if they're overcharged or they're undercharged for consumption. We're trying to address that. So we've narrowed those parameters, which means we're getting a report with a lot more exceptions on it. And so it takes time for somebody to sit there and look through all that. It isn't something that the system can do for us. We have to look through. They can provide the report. The system provides a report, but they can't really analyze the report. So that's what we need. We need some people to do that, to put eyes on those exceptions and be able to analyze and say, you know, is this exception perhaps due to a leak, or is it the meter is not reading correctly, and then send out either someone from regions through a work order or send our meter reader out to go and do a reread. So that's how we're trying to handle those, to try to eliminate some of those billing errors that we've been experiencing and some of those big adjustments we've had to make. Along with that, we would need
Ms. Benson has a question.
Sorry.
Let me just say, what you're proposing is not just good business, but I think it creates goodwill. When you get a communication from the ECUA that says, it looks like you're using a lot more water, why don't you check this? Particularly those of us who have automatic payments who might not scrutinize so careful. I think it is a great practice, and I support that.
Oh, thank you. Along with that, we would need a new service truck for the additional meter reader to be able to use, and some various office equipment items, such as we'll need a couple of computers, you know, for these workstations. We have the space, we just would need the office equipment. So that's the main increase. We're also noticing we're asking for an increase in our postal line item because the postage rates have gone up, and so it's costing us more to send out, as well as the cost of paper is going up, and that's paper that Pinnacle is using to print the bills on. And of course, eventually our goal with the billing system going to the new ERP is that more people will go electronic as well. That particular phase of the ERP system is about 2 years out. So in the meantime, we're still probably printing the same amount of bills we are now, or not making an appreciable difference in the amount of paper we use. Those are our main increases. And with that, if anybody has other questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions? Dr. Walker.
Thank you. One question from what you said, just a small thing, but you said that once the new software is online, that vendors may go on there and see certain things. And one of the things that you said was other bids. What bids can they see?
Well, anything that's advertised, that's open as a bid, they would be able to see the bids. And if they're interested in putting in a bid, they can submit that bid electronically. So it's the same kind of premise that there would be a deadline. You have to have your bid in by a certain date at 2 o'clock. And the system would be set up to when 2 o'clock comes, it wouldn't allow anybody else to put a bid in, but they could submit their bid electronically. As long as they're a registered vendor, they have to register and be vetted by us as far as, their company and their address and all. So when they register, it goes through a workflow, and then purchasing gets a chance to review that and sets them up as a vendor. And then they can, like I said, put their bids in online. They can also sort of track the progress of that bid and see, what the bid results are. And if they're chosen and they start getting payments from us, they can see that they have been paid, because they could look under their vendor number and say, oh, they've issued a check to me. So, be expecting that to be coming either to their bank or in the mail.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second question,
Yes, sir.
Madam Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I think I saw in the back of the information that our total assets of ECUA are something like $900 million.
Yes, that,
Almost a billion.
right. Well, that's total assets.
Right.
Our capital assets are 759 million. That's our net capital assets. That's the book value of our capital assets. So if you add in all these other cash and accounts receivable, different things like that, yes.
Someday we're going to be a big organization.
This is all the funds combined, so this is water, wastewater, sanitation, and the MRF all combined.
And finally, what is the total FY19 budget?
For water, wastewater, it's about 134 million. For sanitation, it's, I want to say around 30 million, and the MRF is close to around 4 million, maybe less, 3.5. I could get you the exact numbers, I don't have them.
Sorry. So, good enough.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Walker. Mr. Ponson.
I know that our system isn't to the point where people get their bills electronically, but can I go on and look at my bill to pay it? Can I go to a system and it pulls up my bill to pay?
You can go and look at your bill. There's a bill that
right.
is generated if you have signed up to do that.
So,
But you can't really go and look at all the history of your bill and stuff like that.
yeah, but I mean, I think there's a percentage of people who would opt out of the mail bill to get a head start on that don't go and, and then maybe if there's some anomaly, they go and they look, but it may be, something that if we can look and if it's possible to start getting people to opt out, the less mail that comes to my house, the better off I am. I'm glad to start, and I think there's a lot of people that are in that boat, even though you don't have a perfect system. Maybe it's time to start.
Well, when they pull it up, it doesn't look like the bill that comes to your house.
Yeah, I know.
It's
just your totals.
Yeah,
how much you need to pay.
It's just sort of a nondescript
Right.
type thing.
Yeah,
But
and it's-
some people like to see that,
Yeah.
see
I
that
mean, it would
bill.
be 100% voluntary, but I
Yeah.
think there's a chunk of people out there, and that may make up for the expansion of the mail rates.
Right. And when we get the new system online for utility billing, customers will also be able to sign up through a customer self-service portal and do the same kind of thing that the vendors can do. They can pull up their account and look at their usage and
Sure.
look at their past bills and, all that kind of stuff.
I understand that's 2 years away, but in the meantime, I think there's a lot of people who would opt out of the thing
Yeah.
coming in the mail, if it's possible.
I think you're right. Mr. Hammer.
All right, this is me being nitpicky, so please, this is the finance guy in me coming out again, all right? So I get budgets. They're I don't want to say an arbitrary number because it's a number you're trying to hit, but there's a lot of slop in there. Would you say that? Like for that budget for 2020?
I would say there's probably some, yes, but
So as a numbers guy, and this is just me just asking out of curiosity because it's been bugging me when I saw it. So I'll turn to page 69. The salaries in 2018 for that department was just over 6 million, and proposed for next year is gone up by 300,000. So when I see that, I know taxes paid out for Social Security has to go up, it can't go down. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention. I see that on a lot of them, like there's no way Social Security paid out will be less. Unless you got rid of W-2 employees and gained 1099 employees.
And this, you're looking at sanitation's budget?
Whatever 69 is.
Yeah, that's sanitation budget, but in general, it kind of comes and goes. Like, this difference is based on what it was last year versus what we're proposing this year. And you'll see that the programmed overtime went down, and some areas went down in the proposed budget. And these numbers are generated based on what is actual today, like who's being paid today. And so that's where this proposed budget number for salaries comes from. So there were some changes, there was less, well, the overtime's not a good example, but because that is what we think we're going to spend on overtime. But people come and go.
No, and I get that. I was just
Yeah.
going off of what you actually spent in 2018 was just over 6 million. And if your projected for next year is 300 grand more, you have to spend more in Social Security than what you did in 2018. That's the only point I'm trying to make. It's physically impossible to spend less. That's all I wanted to
Right.
just bring to someone's attention. That's all. I was just it's me being totally nitpicky, and I'm sure, like, what's wrong with this guy?
Well, we can certainly go back and look at that number. We'll be bringing any corrections or any changes that you make in these sessions back in June when we roll the whole budget together. But let's make a note to go back and check that. We'll be happy to go check that.
What is programmed?
Programmed is planned overtime. I'm
Okay.
kind of getting into Randy's thing.
that's
Is
okay.
what they plan based on availability or what they know they're going to have to work on that's going to be outside of regular hours. And then overtime miscellaneous is overtime as kind of just as it happens. It's not necessarily planned.
Okay.
I have questions.
Thank you, Ms. Ritz.
What a fantastic department you oversee. What a fantastic department you oversee.
Thank you, thank you.
I had a question about the increased travel for staff training.
Yes, ma'am.
I wondered if everything is contained within this building. Am I in error?
Actually, with our new Tyler Munis software, we would like to be able to go to the user group meetings that they're going to have next year. Will be fully implemented on the financial piece. They have user group meetings, which are training sessions. To go to continue learning the best practices and using the system. So that is an increase in our travel budget to send 2 people to the user group meetings.
And could not be accomplished by Skype?
No, ma'am, they don't
Or
do
in-house?
webinars. To do in-house, we would have to hire somebody from Tyler to come in to do the training. The other advantage of the user group meetings is you get to talk to other people who are using the software and find out, what kind of thorns and roses, I like to call them, what's good and what's bad about it. What problems are they seeing, or what are they experiencing that's really working well for them. And then we bring that back and train our staff that we have to say, hey, let's try this, let's do this process. And they also give us updates at those meetings about new software tweaks that they're going to make and how they're going to update the software and, the impacts or the uses of those updates.
Thank you, Ms. Benson.
From a policy perspective, is there any reason that we would not move toward requiring all bids to be submitted electronically and all payments to be done electronically?
Well, what we have found is that we do business with some smaller businesses, and a lot of those businesses, you'd be surprised, they don't have email. They don't do business by email. We either have to send them a paper copy of the purchase order, or we can fax it to them. But a lot of businesses, if they're smaller, don't necessarily do business electronically. And a lot of businesses don't want to get their payment electronically. They want that check in their hand. So there are still businesses out there like that. So we try to accommodate all of them, and the new system will do that. We can set up a vendor as electronic. They'll get their PO electronically. They'll get their payment electronically. And then others are set up to, we can fax them the PO, but it will fax right out of the system. It's a setting in the system. So we'll say fax, and it'll fax it to them. Or we print it and send it in the snail mail.
Just to follow up, I don't know how a business stays in business in today's world without doing email and I understand we want to encourage small businesses and so forth, but I mean, that's so last century, not to do that. And if we're doing this, we ought to at least be able, in evaluating the bid packages, to give credit to those who do accept electronic payments, because it costs us to continue to provide this crutch, essentially. And maybe they need to be encouraged. If they're good enough to win bids with us, they ought to be upgrading and coming into the 21st century. Sorry, that was...
Mr. Kimball.
I had two questions. So we talked about the paperless billing earlier. Has there been any thought or discussion to giving people like maybe a one-time incentive as far as a bill credit or something to move to that and not get a paper bill anymore?
I think we've talked about that before, but I don't remember why it never went anywhere.
Good idea.
It may be because based on, our statutes or our ordinance, all customers have to pay the same thing, and then other customers would be subsidizing customers if they had to pay for that.
My other question, so the increase in salaries was for 2 additional staff, was that right?
Yes.
And were they doing 2 different jobs, or is it?
Well, yes and no. The idea is that they would both be utilized to review these exception reports, but train one of them to also be able to go out and do meter reading, so that we have 3 meter readers. We have had some growth, in the county, and so we have more meters now than we did before. So that would take the strain off the 3 meter readers to have an alternate be able to go out and be trained to do that.
Okay.
Thank you. Dr. Walker?
Thank you. Just a couple of quick historical notes. You said we had 3 meter readers. I remember that when we had 21, before we got these meters that can be read digitally. We had 21 meter readers, now we're down to 3. Also, I wanted to mention that, I wanted to ask you, when you do the physical inventory of all the equipment and so forth, do you find everything?
No, sir, we don't. We find that some things have been disposed of. So we'll do the necessary paperwork, and then we put that together and bring that as a write-off to the board. We've had several times where we've brought disposals or write-offs to the board. So we try to do that, and then at least once a year towards the end of the fiscal year, so we can get the records cleaned up for the end of the fiscal year. And sometimes we find that things have been transferred. That department that we're looking for they may have given it to a different department. So, it's just sort of talking to the custodian. Each department has assigned a custodian of the equipment. And so we work with that person, and they say, oh, we gave that to, so-and-so. So then we'll go over there and find it in that department.
They're not required to tell you when they do it?
There are forms that are supposed to be filled out. I'll tell you, it doesn't always happen.
As a historical note, I would mention that when ECA was first formed, we received an inventory list of all kinds of equipment from the county, another inventory list of all kinds of equipment from the city, And when ECUA staff started doing inventories of equipment, there were dozens, if not scores, of items that were not to be found. And they remained in the inventory list for several years, and every year we got a great big black mark in the annual audit because of all this unfound equipment. It never was found, of course. We probably never received it, and eventually we managed to just somehow write it off.
Thank you. Mr. Ponson.
I have a quick comment about that inventory and something that, whether it applies to you or not, and I know you have to do it once a year. We're required to do inventory once a year, but we're not required to do it all at the same time. So we have basically divided all of our line items to 250, and we do an inventory every day. In this case, maybe if you did it once a month and you check certain ones, so by the end of the year, you're checking every item, but it's not taxing a whole month or taking your whole staff 2 weeks or whatever to get it done. It's done in little chunks throughout the year, and if it fits and if it helps, it might be something worth looking into. It's certainly helped our business.
That's what we do.
Okay.
So we have, as you can imagine, quite a bit of inventory.
Yeah.
And so it does take several months because we also have to schedule it with the department
Sure.
to make sure that they're available to help us walk through it. And we send them a list. They find everything that's on the list so that when we get there, they can take us and, show us where it is. So we work in conjunction with the departments, but it does take several months to get it all done.
Thank you. I was going to comment to Ms. Benson that the worst, one of my customers that I find throughout the state where I can't do electronic payments and still use fax machines and is the government. I have to send them a check, and I'm like, a check? We don't write very many checks. But I know a lot of security issues with payments sometimes, or information going across email. There's been about 3 or 4 companies right here in Pensacola that have been hacked just this year, or one just past week that I know about. So, thank you very much.
Okay.
I agree with Ms. Benson. That's a very, very good report.
Thank you. And I have just put a plug in for my staff in the department. They all work very hard to carry out all of these duties for ECUA and the customers. So I have a great staff, and we're happy to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. Please give your staff kudos from us. Very good job. We move now to maintenance and construction. Oh, I'm sorry.
I think it's regional services.
I'm sorry, I skipped. Regional services. You just thought you were going to get out scot-free.
Okay.
There you go.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Reed. I'm the Director of Regional Services. Probably the board members know this, but for the CAC members, the Regional Services Department, we maintain the water distribution system and the wastewater collection system. The 2 systems include water mains, water services, water meters, fire hydrants, water valves, air release valves, sewer mains, manholes, force mains, and everything else that's pertinent to that. We have 3 divisions for maintenance of 3 different geographical regions. We have an east region, south region, and a west region. We also have a sewer maintenance division. They inspect and maintain all of our manholes. They clean and use cameras to inspect sewer mains, and they respond to sanitary sewer overflows. We also have 4 support divisions. There's a fire hydrant and flush crew. They maintain all of the fire hydrants, and they do all the flushing of the water system. We have a patch services division. After the work is completed, they go back and they patch roads, driveways, the right-of-way in front of people's homes, that type of thing. We have a crew that maintains all the air release valves on force mains, and they also maintain all of the water valves and any other valves that are on a force main, basically any of the valves in the system. And we also have the fats, oils, and grease, the FOG group, and they do the inspections of food service establishments and perform other activities to ensure compliance with our FOG requirements. So far on our the targeted accomplishments for 2019, we seem to be more or less on target for those. We're a little behind on some, a little ahead on others, but I think by the end of the year we'll have reached all of those targeted accomplishments that we listed for 2019. For the fiscal year 20 budget, I think probably the biggest item on there is other contractual services for the patch division. We've asked for a $325,000 increase. That is, in part, we have hired a contractor who now does all of our patching, or the majority of our patching services. Some of the smaller stuff we still do in-house. So far, that's been very successful for us. We've gotten complaints have been are way down. We have a very limited backlog of patches that need to be completed. The other element to that is that the city has gone on a major resurfacing effort that they recently completed. All of those newly resurfaced roads, if we have to work under them, then their requirement is that we mill and overlay the road, which is very expensive. And that accounts for a lot of that additional money that we're asking for. Beyond that, a lot of these items are related to the growth of the system. The miscellaneous overtime, that's to keep up with the growth of the system. And we're taking a more proactive approach to when we have rain events, we put people out on site in known problem areas. That's putting a vac truck out there. That's expensive to operate, but I think it's really helped with our sanitary sewer overflows. Repair and maintenance of equipment, we've asked for an additional $24,000. That's based on historical trends, just to maintain our vehicles and equipment. Operating supplies, we've asked for an additional $9,000. New service materials, an additional $20,000. And those are both items that are to meet the growth of the system. We need more materials, more equipment to keep up with the growth. So that's kind of what I prepared. If anybody has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Kimball?
So, you're not the only one. I'm going to ask this question a lot. The overtime, is there any way to manage, I mean, that's such a big number. Like, does it make sense to add staff? And believe me, I'm the first to not like the thought. I had to bite my tongue on adding 2 new people. And so I'm not a big proponent of that, but if it makes cost-effective sense, I mean, is there any reason to think that it might make sense to add someone and manage them differently to cut that cost down?
Yes, sir. It's something that we look at. At this point, I think we can still we still come out ahead with the additional overtime.
Ms. Benson?
How are we trending with SSOs?
Well, the goal we set for fiscal year 19 was to reduce SSOs that could be that were avoidable by 10%. Right now, we've reduced it by 20%. We're only halfway through the year, so still remains to be seen, but I think we've made major improvements.
And is that because of our I&I work, or how else would we do that?
Yes, the I&I work has greatly improved the system. Places that where the sewer mains were undersized, where lift stations were undersized, under capacity, we've made a lot of improvements in that. And so, yes, ma'am, that's a big part of it.
It's good to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ritz?
Thank you. I'd like to go back to overtime.
Yes, ma'am.
Would you tell me how that is calculated? Is it double or 1.5 times the rate hour?
Yes, ma'am, it's time and a half
Time
is
and
how
a
it's
half.
paid, yes.
Have you looked at the causes for the overtime? I'm sure you have. That's a silly
Yes, ma'am,
question.
I do. You know, a lot of it is water main breaks, sewer main breaks, things that happen after hours. You know, the system's growing every day. And so we haven't increased our head count, and so one of the ways that we keep up with that increased work amount is overtime.
And I've heard you say that you've already looked at the possibility of adding another crew, and that would not be feasible. Is that what I hear?
I don't think at this point, but it's something we'll continue to look at.
Good question, Mr. Perkins.
I like the idea of trying to be proactive when we know there's a big rain event or something, having back trucks already mobilized and stuff too. Do we have like on my boat, I have a high water alarm when, you know, a float switch basically. Do we have that on lift stations and stuff, and so we can respond when we see a problem coming?
Yes, sir, we do. We have high-level alarms at I think all of the lift stations. We have certain ones picked out that indicate when the system is getting overwhelmed. We have the SCADA Control Center. They have a list of those lift stations, and when they see an issue, they'll call my personnel, and they'll go ahead and get out on site when we see that the system's starting to get overwhelmed.
Yeah, and as far as the overtime and stuff, you know, there's probably not a better place you can spend it than there. When somebody has sewage backing up in their house or in their yard or something, it's an emergency. I mean, we need to respond to that as soon as possible. You know, and it seems like those always happen late at night and on the weekends. But, you know, I applaud the work you do, but, you know, I'm in favor of having the resources there to do that, because it's not something we can, you know, if you respond to that in a nonchalant or slow or non-sense of urgency manner, the people remember that forever. But if you get out there and get it taken care of quickly, they also remember that. So it's a big deal.
Very true.
Thank you. Any further questions? Thank you, Brian. I'd like to also throw in, I'm loving that I see 300 to 400 gallons every week of fog that's just not going into the system anymore because of your fog program.
Right.
That's just unbelievable program. I know we added one more place to pick up jugs, so thank
Yeah.
you very much for that. It's really a good program.
I agree. I think that's been a big benefit for us.
You know, does our public information people put out those fog locations like on Facebook or something? I mean, do we?
Yeah, I actually took it
How do
off
we
of
find
our Facebook page and shared it on my personal
All right.
ECUA Facebook page this week, just because I thought it was such great information. And, you know, if you want to get on that Facebook page and invite all your friends to follow, that'd be a good thing. It's really good information there. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
We move now to maintenance and construction. I was just trying to get to Jerry. Thank you.
Vertical challenge here, so. I'm a Deputy Executive Director of Maintenance and Construction. I have regional services reports through me, and I also have 7 other divisions. Generator maintenance, which is responsible for all the emergency backup power for the entire company. We do all the generators throughout the system. That's lift stations, the plants, this building and any other satellite facilities. We have our Infor systems maintenance, which does our inventory and asset management for the plant, and we keep up with every site, every motor, every gear, every type of component within the system so we can stock spares, so on and so forth. And I think Patty would agree, we have the most valuable warehouse at ECUA with all the components we keep in inventory. Then there's the instrument and electrical department. That's a group of 16 men, and they keep up with all the electrical within the company. We do high voltage down to low voltage, down to 12 volt DC, everything. And they go out throughout all the electrical systems. They go out for emergencies. They're on call 24/7, like a lot of our groups. We have the lift stations group, which does all the lift stations. When last time I spoke in front of the board, we had 376 lift stations. Today, we're at 390, and I expect to get 6 more within the next 3 months. So we'll be probably getting over 400 within the next year, and I think we're going to continue to grow based on the amount of subdivisions and development that's going out on the west side of the county. Then there's the odor control division, one of our favorites. It's a staff of 3 folks, and they keep up with odor control at all our facilities, so they're very busy. And then the last one is the industrial plant maintenance department. Those are our high-tech, high-skilled mechanics that can weld and do all the industrial maintenance within our plants. They basically can fabricate, install, and pretty much maintain every component within the system. They maintain they do the heavy maintenance at the material recycling facility. They do the MRF, the giant tub grinder out there. They do all those assets. As far as our goals and objectives, our goal is to be the Maytag repairman and never be called. Unfortunately, that's not reality in the sewer business. We're called all the time. Our biggest accomplishment I'd like to talk is for lift stations. In fiscal year 18, we had 11 SSOs, 5 of which were attributable to Tropical Storm Gordon. 6 were due to just random rain events and lightning. And in fiscal year 19, it is now 0 through fiscal year 19. So we'll see if we can make it the rest of the year, but we're making big strides towards driving it to 0. So anyway, with that, I'm open to questions.
Ms. Benson.
I was speaking to an electrical contractor a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that the average age of electricians working in residential and commercial construction is now in like the 50s, and he said they can't find young people to do trained electricians. Are you finding it difficult to get people to do the kind of technical work that you perform?
Yes, ma'am. It's only, I think, this year that we actually finally staffed the entire department. We have had continuous openings since we moved from Main Street. We've been through 3 salary increases, and we finally have implemented our own training program, and we're hiring, you know, like you said, electricians from lower industry like house building, and we actually train them now to up to what we need. With the market being as tight as what it is, we're actually been lucky to hold on to our guys, and I attribute that to HR support and helping us with market studies on what an appropriate pay would be for the instrument electrical guys.
It's an interesting challenge that we
The
have.
good news is there's been a bunch laid off at Gulf Power. So so right now there's a little bit of a silver lining that there's some manpower available.
And do you ever interface with any of the schools, the technical schools, the George Stones and?
We have, and there's, you know, they're starting to actually push those programs a little bit more now. PSC is actually engaged, and one of the things we couldn't find as well for a bunch of years was welders. And they're now training that program again, so that's going to help us out tremendously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions?
I have a friend who has a son who just got out of welding school, and his friend went as well. They're both 19 years old, and they're making $32 an hour, just at 19 years old. Man.
I'd like to, Mr. Kimball?
So I got to ask the same question that I
Yes,
asked
sir.
her. You know, so I kind of went through and just added it up. I mean, in these budgets here, there's over $2 million in overtime across everywhere. So, I mean, being around here long enough, I've seen you guys do a good job of managing things, but from someone as an outsider looking in, that's one of those things that kind of jumps out as like, wow, can't they manage things better? I mean, that's just such a big number of, seeming like maybe there should be some analysis done to see
Okay.
if we can't add some, and I'm
Well,
not.
well, and I can address some of that. That's actually about half of what it was. We've done some things where we've actually added a second shift in lift stations. We found that the majority of our on-call stuff during the week, Monday to Friday, when it's not raining or a storm, is attributable to after-hours type activities. And so we now have a second shift, and that cut about a third of their overtime budget. And we're doing other things where we have just people on standby. See, a lot of that budget that you see is a large portion of that is paying crews to be available on weekends, and that's a 2-hour standby pay that they're getting even though they're not working. It just makes them available, so when there is a backup at someone's house or on a Sunday when lightning strikes or a car hits a pole and power goes out, I have a crew already dispatched, and they're towing a generator out straight over there. And that's what a lot of that overtime dollars goes towards, is the fact that we're responding, trying to prevent an SSO. We're trying to be one step ahead of it. And adding a crew depends on, well, we'll probably be back in a year adding a crew for lift stations if we continue to get lift stations. But right now, one crew in lift stations, they're responsible for 50 lift stations a week. So they're very busy as well. So we walked that fine line. You can see we tried to hold the overall maintenance construction budget to a 1% increase, and I think we were like 1.25%. So I think we're pretty tight.
Thank you. Thank you. Good comments. I do think a lot of ECUA's overtime is because of issues that go on after hours and on the weekends that we really can't control, especially the weather ones, weather events. He didn't list in his things that he does here of taking care of trespassers. He's like a hawk out there.
That's right.
And flying helicopters, but
I do.
thank you, Jerry. Appreciate
Thank you.
We move now to water production.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Dawson. I'm the Director of Water Production, and I wanted to spend a few minutes just kind of going over what we do in water production and what our staff is. In water production, we're pretty much responsible for the planning, permitting, design, construction, operating, and maintenance of the water production facilities. Those facilities consist of water wells, which we have 31 permitted water wells. We have 28 right now that are active. We have water storage tanks, both elevated and ground. We have pump stations, and we have automated valves out in the transmission distribution system that we also are responsible for. We also have the communication center, which operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, every day of the year, holiday, doesn't matter. We always have somebody in the communication center. And there's actually two parts of the communication center. One is the water side, and one operates more of the lift station side of the company. We have 4 divisions. The first division are the water operations or water operators. Myself, the director, we have an assistant director. We are both professional engineers. We have a confidential assistant and 1 part-time worker, and we have 1 student. And then we have 12 licensed water treatment plant operators within that department with 3 trainees. And the trainees have come in to replace people that have left, moved on, retired, etc. And we hope that they will get their water operator license also. We also have 3 tractor trailer drivers, and they drive large trucks that take our bag lime, they take our other chemicals like fluoride, hydrofluorosilicic acid, orthophosphate, and that kind of stuff to each of the well sites, you know, every other day, every 3 days, every 4, depending on the demand at the time. We also have a well mechanical division. It consists of 3 licensed water treatment plant operators, 3 licensed water distribution system operators, and 1 additional employee. Their main focus is to do preventative maintenance at our facilities. And then, of course, if something breaks, they have to go in and fix it and, you know, keep the facilities running for us. And they do a good job. We also had, like I said, the communication center, and there's 6 licensed water treatment plant operators in it on the water side. And then we have 5 communication coordinators in there. Cross-connection control is also under our department. Consists of 5 employees, and they all have certifications of one type or another. And our biggest challenge in that division has been the residential, as I think everybody knows. Primary goal for our department is to provide high-quality water for consumption and quantities able to meet our customers' demands, whether those be for consumption, irrigation, or fire protection. Primary objective and accomplishments. And I will say on our 2019 targeted accomplishments, we probably were a little optimistic. Several of the projects, funding-wise, did not get high enough priorities because other things were more important, not only in our department, but for ECUA. So some of those you'll see again. We'll put them in our targeted accomplishments for next year. And hope that we get the funding to move forward with them. But the primary objectives are to meet all primary and secondary water quality standards. And this past year we had no MCL violations, and we had no reporting or monitoring violations, and that's obviously very important. It's not something where if you have 5, you want to reduce it. We don't want to have any. Because we want our customers to be confident in the water quality and you know, the water that they're drinking and using. Also, as part of that, we continue to provide accurate sampling and testing, which is important. We were able to get all of our reports within the deadlines without any issues there, so we're proud of that. I will go through a couple of the accomplishments that we were able to do from 2019. The first thing, and this is an important thing to us, is to evaluate our water system not only for today but for the future. So we strive to keep a master plan up to date, and in fact we are about to complete an update to the North Zone master plan at this time, and we're looking at doing a South Zone master plan update hopefully in this next year. And that helps us evaluate projects that were recommended in prior master plan updates so that we can make sure they're still relevant. You know, things change, so we like to update that so we know that what we're doing is still what needs to be done. Another thing that we had in our accomplishments was to perform all annual tank inspections and all 5-year required tank inspections. With the number of tanks we have in our system, that's important. It's also a regulatory requirement, and we accomplished that again this year. What comes out of that process is recommendations to upgrade the facilities or maintain the facilities, etc. And a good for instance is our East Tank, which is on the interstate, which has the Blue Angel golf tournament logo on it, is one of the ones right now that we need major overhaul of the coating system. So that's something we're hoping to get in the CIP. Talking real quick about our operating budget. I think our largest increase is $25,000, and that is more or less to keep up some of the aging water treatment facilities until we can replace them. In fact, we just got through totally overhauling the lime room on 2 wells where the floor had to be taken out, pretty much coming apart. The pipe under the floor had to be replaced, the walls had to be replaced, pretty much the whole room had to be replaced. And that's the kind of stuff we're asking for that additional $25,000 on. Other than that, we really don't have any large increases. We have a decrease in our overtime. Let me see here what else we have. Our overtime has been greatly reduced in the last few years, but one of the reasons was, one of the comments were, do you need to add additional staff? I think about 3 or 4 years ago we added a person, and it took our overtime from 130,000 down quite lower, and that was actually, I think that's the one that's 91,000 now, so it's say 40,000 there. That's pretty much what I've got. If you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Thank you, Tom. Does anybody have any questions? Ms. Benson?
Are you, Mr. Dawson, are you monitoring trends at the EPA level and the national level for changes in water quality requirements and testing requirements, and anticipating our needs in that regard?
Yes, one of the programs that EPA has is the contaminants that are not currently being regulated.
Right.
And through that program, we get information on constituents that aren't currently being regulated, and we look at those and make decisions, based on the information we get. So that kind of helps us stay ahead of what may be coming down the road, as far as new contaminants being regulated and that sort of thing.
Are we ever proactive about some of these that may not be on the EPA or DEP guidelines, but maybe we ought to be
Well, I
concerned
think
about?
currently, or recently, in the last few years, we have put in some treatment for a group of compounds that are not regulated right now. They're talking about regulating them, but that will probably be a decision that comes in the next 3 or 4 years. We made the decision to go ahead and be proactive, and we put in GAC filters to treat. And those kind of decisions aren't easy to make because we want to be good stewards of our customers' money. So
Right.
at those 2 wells, each of those systems was over $1 million. But we felt like it was important in that case to do so, and I think it was a good decision.
So you're following our mission as well as the dollars. One other question. There are frequently concerns about runs on our aquifer because we don't own the water in our aquifer, and South Florida needs water. Have there been any incursions into our water, and what do we do about it if that happens?
Over the past probably 8 or 10 years, as water's gotten more scarce down in the southern and central part of the states, there were some discussions early on about them trying to get some of the water from up here and piping it down there.
Right.
Really haven't heard a whole lot of that recently. You hear more about them doing things down there like aquifer storage and recovery and desalination and that kind of stuff. But at this point, that's kind of died down a little bit.
Thank you. Madam Chairman,
Yes,
I know
please.
these are not necessarily budget related.
Right,
But
that's
it's
okay.
so valuable to have these departments come before us and to hear what they're doing and to have an opportunity to ask them questions. So thank you for allowing that.
Thank you. I appreciate the questions. Dr. Walker?
Yes, Mr. Dawson, you mentioned a north zone and a south zone. Would you please tell us why the water production and distribution system is actually 2 subsystems, a north in the north zone and in the south zone?
It's mainly based on elevation and pressure. And most of the south zone is at a lower elevation than the north zone. So in order to keep the pressures in reasonable ranges, we have the two zones. So the hydraulic grade line in the north zone is higher than the south zone. And that's the main reason.
So none of the water from the south goes into the north?
We have a couple wells that are on the border that we have the capability of pumping north or south. Royce is one of those that's, we can pump in either side. We have one valve right now that allows water from the north zone to go to the south zone. And it's you know, that's pretty easy to do because you do have the higher pressure in the north zone, so it's done just by opening a valve. And we're looking at putting another one in on Blue Angel Parkway to do the same thing on the west side of our system. But normally you don't go from the south to the north because of the pressure.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking that question, Ms. Benson. Thank you very much, Mr. Dawson. Appreciate your,
Thank you.
It's not a budget question, but
Mr. Hamer.
what in the world is that crazy war eagle thing around your neck?
I think I'm just going to close this and sit down.
I used to have a cup up here that I kept just for Randy. Speaking of, no, we're to water reclamation. Would anybody like a 5-minute recess? Yes, okay. I apologize for that. I thought about it over the last one. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. We'll come back. I know. I didn't bring a cup on purpose today. Who's doing water? Oh, I see. You're good. We're about ready. That's okay. And I think we only have a couple more. We'll move now to, and I think a couple of folks had to leave. We'll move now to water reclamation.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. Thank you, CAC, for having me today. I'm sorry, I'm the wrong Randy. He's coming up next. My name is Randy Sears. I'm the Director of Water Reclamation. And what that means is there is a staff of 73 of us who oversee the operations of the CWRF, Bayou Marcus Water Reclamation Facility, Pensacola Beach Water Reclamation Facility, and the Water Quality Laboratory. All three of our treatment plants operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. That's by permit, and the state requires licensed operators to be there the entire time. Our main goal in performing with the wastewater plants is complying with our operating permit. I pulled together the compliance numbers for fiscal year 2018 because fiscal year 2019 is not done yet. We had 14,350 compliance points. That's metrics that we needed to meet. In fiscal year 18, we missed on 6. And 5 of those are no longer in the operating permits. The new operating permits in CWRF and Bayou Marcus don't have those anymore. So that would have put us at a 99.99% compliance rate. And as we say in the industry, you never know what's coming down the pipe. There's a lot of manholes. There's a lot of storm. There's a lot of everything. So just the ability to bob and weave makes us good at what we do. On the other side of that, we do have to do reports for DEP, EPA, Department of Health, which we did more than 90 last calendar year. So you put that together, we can just start adding up the numbers. And each one of those, there's hundreds of compliance points inside of them. So it's just a very timely kind of thing. So from that, you can see where our primary goals are. On the lab side, we do actually run lab analyses. We also have a field sampling group, which does a lot of our field sampling for the water production department. We also have a pretreatment group who is out and works with industries in the area to be sure that they're not putting improper materials down the drains. What else do I have here? So just looking back at fiscal year 19 targeted accomplishments, we talk about the new DEP permit requirements for Bayou Marcus and CWRF. We've been under Bayou Marcus for about 7 months now. We have not missed on a single metric that they've given us there. CWRF, we've been on since February 1st. We have not missed on that new permit either yet. The second one, complete startup of the new UV, which Dr. Walker has been intimately involved with. That has been operating now for about 3 or 4 weeks, and we do not have any problems now with that. We've sorted out all the little hiccups with it. The last one for this year is going to be the Pensacola Beach Wastewater Treatment Plant operating permit, which is due this fall. We are currently lining up all of our analyses that will go into that, so we will be on time for that. It will be submitted in September of this year. When we move to my operating budget for this year, overall the operating budget is actually a decrease. We're about negative $70,000 from last year. A lot of that has to do with retirements of long-term individuals. We've had several 30-year plus employees retire, and we've filled those vacancies with bottom of the pay grade kind of individuals. The only reason there is a positive is I've had a couple of capital outlays that I'm looking for just for some more field sampling equipment and that sort of thing, but overall we are way less than a 1% increase this year. And with that being said, I'll open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Randy.
Yes, ma'am.
We like Randy's here.
I hope that I'm the Randy that you never hear from. That means I'm doing my job well.
Well, I like the 1%. Ms. Ritz?
Yes, thank you. I'm curious, how do you inspect the industries to make sure they're in compliance?
We actually go out and we sample them. Depending upon how big they are, how much they discharge, we do field sampling. And we actually have Chapter 26 in the ECUA code that allows us to enforce rules on what is dropped down the sanitary sewer.
Do they know you're coming?
From time to time, they do. There's other times where we do drop-in inspections and those sorts of things. But lots of our samples, we actually have our own samplers in the lines. They're what's called composite samplers. So they pull every 30 minutes, every hour. So we grab samples over the course of the day so they cannot alter their operations to hide from us per se.
That shows you what level of understanding I had. Much better now, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Ms. Ritz. Mr. Sorrell?
Yeah, I just want to let you know, Randy's one of the relatively new directors. Most of you probably have not seen him before. He's worked for us for a while. He does this. You never hear from him. I hear from him, but you never hear from him because he always does a good job, and you heard the number of samplings that he does. But Randy's, I think he's a microbiologist. He's also been a laboratory chemist and some other things. So he's a perfect guy to be in charge of the bugs at the plants and the laboratory.
Thank you. Yeah, yet you and Sonny out there had big shoes to fill. And I mean, you know what? I said this to somebody the other day. I said, I'll tell you one thing about Steve Sorrell. He runs a tight ship at this place because when people leave, we never know it. I mean, they just, there's the succession here is just fabulous. One person moves out of the head of the department, another person moves in, Patty, Kim, Randy, and we never even notice it. It's just like a well-oiled machine. Really good job. You're doing a great job.
Thank you,
I
ma'am.
love that 1%. Thank you, Randy. I don't think we have any further questions, but good job on your report. Now, the other Randy. He's up for 2.
Yep. Yeah, I'm the troublemaker.
You hear from him.
Yeah, all the time. Yeah, for those of you who don't know, I'm Randy Rudd. I'm the Deputy Executive Director of Shared Services. Last month I covered all the shared services stuff, so tonight I'm putting on my garbage man hat, basically, for the sanitation department. There's 13 divisions within sanitation. Basically, you got administration, which is me. Residential operations, that's for Escambia County. They provide weekly pickup for 80,000 homes within the county. That's 4 services every week that go by those 80,000 homes, which means we've got 4 drivers at least that have to do what they're supposed to do every week to make it work. We're also covering the fleet maintenance, which handles all the maintenance for all the vehicles for sanitation and the other departments as well. Commercial operations, we have exclusive rights to commercial collection on Pensacola Beach, and we actually compete with the private haulers on the mainland of Escambia County and Santa Rosa County. And that's a growing operation every day. We have yard trash service and bulky waste service. And then, of course, recycling collection. And now we're doing the composting, which recently became a 7-day-a-week operation. And finally, we have Santa Rosa County collections, which we collect from 25,000 homes now in Santa Rosa County. So we are a fairly large operation as sanitation departments go. Some of our accomplishments for last year were to reduce the number of accidents, but 3%. We did not meet that. If you look at our accidents, one of the biggest, probably 70% of our accidents are backing accidents, where they back into a tree, a mailbox, parked car, you name it, we've backed into it. Something we're doing to try to eliminate that, I just told Steve this week. Yesterday we installed a new radar system on the back of a garbage truck. It's very similar to what some of you may be familiar with in a personal car now, but it's been around a while for that, but the technology is actually new for garbage trucks. Installed it yesterday, tested it, it works very well. We're gonna road test it for a while, and if it's successful, we're gonna come back to the board and ask for more of it. It's about $1,900 per truck. We've been very fortunate, not had any fatalities. Other places can't say that. And garbage trucks are very big. People like to walk behind them. And this is the kind of technology we're looking at to prevent a catastrophe like that.
Do they already have backup cameras on them?
They have cameras, but there's still blind spots on the back of a garbage truck. So this system, it will automatically engage the brake. The driver doesn't have to do anything. If it picks up anything back there, it stops the truck automatically. So we hope that will reduce the backing accidents. The other big cause of our accidents are left-hand turns. The driver drives on the right-hand side of the truck. If there's a passing lane next to them, they have to rely on that mirror, and if people are in a hurry. So we're actually talking to the manufacturer about installing these units on the left side of the truck to prevent this from happening. So that we're gonna work on that as well.
Ms. Benson.
Yeah, on the new trucks that we've ordered, is it possible to have that technology on those? They're in production right now.
They're in production. We'll install them ourselves when we get it, but going forward in future orders, yes, we will include that equipment. So, the second accomplishment is to reduce the number of missed pickups. We did not meet that earlier, and the system we talked about earlier, Routeware, is hopefully going to do a lot to improve that number. Biggest cause there is turnover. So, another goal was to compost 20,000 tons per year of yard trash. We met that goal. We send nothing at all to the landfill now for yard trash. Used to be all 20,000 tons of that went to either a C&D landfill or Perdido landfill. We're now composting all that material. And finally, to reduce the curbside recycling contamination levels 18%. Right now, we're hovering around 23%. We're doing some education, and we're looking at some other things we can do to improve that number. As far as our budget goes, the biggest increase was in disposal cost. That is primarily driven by using the county's transfer station. There's a premium that we pay on that. Also just the growth in the number of homes that we service. And there will be a rate increase in Santa Rosa County this year. So that's the biggest line item increase in the budget. Be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Mr. Perkins.
Do we have the flexibility, like we have an exclusive franchise on Pensacola Beach, so, if people can't compete with us, we need to make sure we get everything in a timely manner. Do we have the flexibility built in or somehow able to use it like on the big weekends, like Blue Angels and this Memorial Day weekend, where we go out there like on a Friday, empty everything, and then get out there as soon as we can on a Monday or anything? Because I know that every time it seems like after one of the big weekends I go out there, there's just trash flowing out everything. I don't know if there's any way we can ever keep up with it and do a better job of that, but
yes, sir. We go out there an extra day on those days. We go out there at actually 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning to try to get some of the locations that we can. There's just so much you can do when they generate that much waste. Normally, a lot of places you would put in extra containers and all that. They don't want to do that because they don't want to lose parking spaces. Parking is a premium out there, and that's the big issue.
Good question.
Mr.
Ponson.
How many addresses do we service?
In Escambia County, it's a little over 80,000, and in Santa Rosa County, it's right around 25,000.
Ms. Benson.
I don't think we give you enough kudos about this whole mulch and changing yard waste. into mulch as opposed to disposing it. I mean, you get all of our calls for missed pickups, but I don't think we call you to tell you what a great program that has been. And when I go out to community meetings, people love that we're doing that. I think it's good for the environment, it's goodwill for ECUA.
That may only get better, right?
Yes, ma'am, we're working on that.
Okay. Dr. Walker?
Are we still on target to replace all of the old BFI cans?
We're working on that, yes, sir.
That will happen in this fiscal year?
Will not be this fiscal year, possibly in 2020 fiscal year.
Thank you. And I'm assuming that you're going to give us a material recycle facility as well.
Okay, next item is the recycling, MRF, Materials Recycling Facility. We took over operation of that in May of 18. Some of the goals for that facility were to operate with less than 5% downtime. We've achieved that. Process an average of 150 tons a day. We've achieved that as well. And then some. We've had days we've processed up to 200 tons of material a day. There again, we want to continue to work on public education efforts to get the contamination levels down, not just in our loads, but the loads coming from all of our customers as well. And we're working on that. We're actually looking at some technology that'll help us identify loads that come in that are contaminated. As far as the budget, I mean, we're in the worst market for commodities ever, basically at this point. Market values are down on every commodity. There's a glut of mixed paper on the market. We are moving some of it. There's a glut of cardboard on the market. We're actually moving some of that, though. All of the other items we're moving consistently and not having any problems with those materials. Big problems are in the mixed paper and the cardboard. We're not alone in that. I was just at a conference and every MRF in the industry is having the same issue. It's going to be a while, and before the domestic capacity increases enough to relieve that. So we're trying to look at some other possible uses for the mixed paper. But bottom line is keeping it out of the landfill is a huge advantage. If we were to landfill everything that is going through the MRF from the ECUA alone, we would have to increase the sanitation budget by approximately $800,000 a year just to cover the disposal. So, you know, it is a downtime. It is, like I said, the worst commodities market in, you know, my career. So, but we are doing well. We typically are getting a premium on all the materials other than mixed paper. So the plant is operating well. We're doing some things to cut operating costs. We just cut 8 sorting positions. We are looking at eliminating some permanent positions, but we are able to continue to handle the flow of material that's coming through the facility. In fact, we ran out of material yesterday. So the plant itself is working very well.
Dr. Walker?
You eliminated 8 sorter positions.
Yes, sir.
Out of a total of how many positions?
30.
So 8 out of 30.
Yeah.
That seems quite drastic. How did you do that?
By changing the way we are processing the mixed paper and the newspaper and cardboard. What we've discovered is that the processing facilities are interested in a newspaper cardboard blend of material. We can do that easily, and that's where we were able to reduce the sorters by 8. They're all day labor positions, so they weren't permanent ECUA employees. So now we are allowing that material to go out commingled, and that we're actually gonna get a higher market value than what we were doing before by using those 8 sorters.
And that's cardboard and newspaper?
Correct.
Not all newspaper?
Not all mixed paper.
Mixed paper, but just newspaper?
Yep.
Okay. I have a second question. We're losing money on the operating cost, or exceeding operating revenues right now by, according to page 77, by about close to $500,000 through March. And you said we'd face something like $800,000 or $900,000 in loss, operating loss. Is that for the year? Would that be about right?
Yes, sir, I think we're projecting right around $1 million.
But we're still coming out ahead because of the reduction of tipping fees by not putting the recyclables
Yes,
into
sir.
the
If you
landfill.
factor in the revenue from the sale of materials plus the avoided disposal costs, then we're in a much better situation. But that's an avoided cost. It's our, you know, it's easy to calculate because it's $45 a ton for everything that we do not put in that landfill.
Right. And how many tons in a year do we not put in the landfill?
We're pushing about 14,500 tons not going into landfill by processing it through the MRF.
Okay.
14,500 tons.
Just from ECUA, yes.
Is that it, Dr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Hammer?
Forgot what I was gonna ask. Oh, you made me think of something, in the commodities world. So there's an abundance of paper and cardboard.
Correct.
So, and I'm not smart enough on what kind of paper do you have, but what happens to that paper? It just sits around until you can sell it, or?
Right now,
Who do we
yes, sir. Our option is either stockpile it or put it in the landfill. Right now, we're looking at some other alternatives to see if we can get some value out of it.
Who do we normally sell it to?
Mainly paper mills.
Oh, okay.
And we're in a good geographic location because there's a lot of paper mills in the southeast. A lot of places where there's not paper mills, they're just putting it straight in the landfill. So
But you can't take that paper and sell it to a consumer like myself, right?
No, it has to be reprocessed.
Okay. Because I was thinking the school district goes through so much paper, it's unreal.
The mixed papers, everything from receipts to envelopes to office paper, there's a mixture of everything in it.
Ms. Ritz?
Thank you. I'll say this, I am so glad to see recycling continue and you're not giving up. Because so many other places have closed. But my thought was, are there any areas in the United States or even overseas that have had success with reducing the contaminants?
Oh, yes, ma'am. A lot of places are, they have very low contamination levels because recycling's been around for a very long time. And they, their costs are typically much higher than what ours are. But recycling is a very local proposition. It all depends on where you are, your distance to processing facilities, and, there's a lot of factors that go into what make it work.
Dr. Walker?
Mr. Rudd, you said that this is the worst market for recyclable commodities that you've ever seen?
Yes, sir. In the 25 years I've been doing
In
it.
25 years?
Yes, sir.
Do you think it could get worse?
I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. The feeling is we've got probably 9 months to a year of this really bad market for paper generally. And that's really the big issue. When China stopped taking paper, that took, millions of tons per year off the market. That's what the industry's trying to recover from. And, you know, they are building plants now. Some of the Chinese companies have actually come over here and either bought existing plants and they're retrofitting them, or they're building new plants. A lot of those facilities will come in line about 9 months to a year. That will take about half of the surplus that's in the market right now. Right now, there's about 2 million tons a year of mixed paper that doesn't have a home. When those plants come on in 9 months to a year, that'll take up about half of it. There's other plants that are being reworked, basically to take mixed paper and generate cardboard. And those will probably come in about 2 years. Once that happens, the market should really start to pick back up. But for the next 4 or 5 months, we're probably looking at a continued down market. After that, it should start to slowly improve.
And are we at any risk of not being able financially to weather this prolonged low?
Well, I'll say this, we're in much better shape than the private haulers or private processors that have done in the past. If y'all remember, we started our curbside recycling program in 2009. At that time, we weren't able to operate on MRF, so we contracted with a private company. We've had 3 private companies go bankrupt, you know, while processing our material between 2009 and 2016 when we opened our facility. It is a tough market. When the markets are good, you can make money. When they're bad, you're gonna have to struggle to even break even. That's where we're at. You know, I think that was some of the logic from the board when they decided to build the MRF, was that this will at least allow us to have a facility that'll be operating whether the markets are good or bad. And that's where we're at. You know, if it gets to the point where the board says, let's just landfill it, you know, that's always an option. But I can tell you, people don't like that. Santa Rosa County is going through that right now, and there's some very unhappy customers over there. So,
Mr. Pounson. I'm sorry, Dr. Walker.
Is Santa Rosa
Continue.
County ending their recycling collection program?
right now, they're not transporting it to us. It is going in the landfill.
And is there public reaction to that?
Yes.
Is,
Mr. Ponson.
paper biodegradable? I mean, is it, when it's sitting there stored, is it going away?
Right. We try to keep it inside as much as possible because moisture is an issue for the mills when they receive it. But one of the options we are looking at is introducing it into our composting.
That's exactly where I was going. Can't this be mixed with our composting pile?
There's some pre-processing you have to do. We're looking at several alternatives, see which one's most cost effective.
One step ahead of me every time.
So, yeah, I know, my thing was, well, technologies are on the horizon, but I know that Randy's already onto those technologies, so, thank you, Randy. I know that you have some great plans in store for us there, and I appreciate you. Any further questions? I think our compost is doing so well that it would be fantastic if that paper was composted, so. Thank you, Randy. I believe that concludes our budget reports. And we move now to the informational reports. Does anybody have any questions on pages 73 through 92? Nope. I had an unfinished business I am going to pass on until next month. Dr. Walker, I know you have something under new business. Do you want to hold that till next month as well? It's getting a little late.
I don't remember what it.
Elimination of plastic trash bags.
I'll save it.
Okay. All right. We move now. Do we have any further unfinished business? Not any further new business? Not, we move now to our second open forum, and we have one speaker, Mr. Tweedy, Barry Tweedy.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. My name is Barry Tweedy. I reside at 10395 Old Dairy Lane in Pensacola. I would hope that this committee and/or the board would not change the format of our agendas such that the second open forum goes away. I wish Mr. Subhor had been able to stay, because some of this was directed to him, actually. My observation when he was here before and was asked to leave was that he wasn't attempting to insert his prayer along with the prayer that was recognized. He was just simply trying to drown it out. He didn't want anybody to hear what was said. It does give residents that may be able to get off from work a chance to come here and speak to the board. So it does provide some useful purpose other than providing a vehicle to beat up the chairman, various chairmen. Well, there have just been two people that have abused the system, in my view, and that was to beat up the various chairmen, essentially. So I hope that
That's
it
why I
doesn't
never
go
let them
away.
make me chairman.
I hope that that second bite of the apple, or the chance to bite it, doesn't go away. It particularly provides someone that has been here and attended the meetings a chance to, if something weird happens during the meeting, another chance to inform the board or the committee that this is weird, we shouldn't do this. But that concludes my harangue. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you, Mr. Tweedy. Your observations are always very important to us. Mr. Perkins.
I just wanted to let everybody know that by the time we meet next, we will be 3 weeks into red snapper season, so go out there and get you some of them red snapper before our next meeting.
I thought you might just bring us some. Mr. Sorrell.
No, I just wanted to give you a little bit of brief information. Randy alluded to it, but actually he's brilliant in some of the things that he's come up with. We have an abundance of mixed paper and some cardboard at the materials recycling facility, which he mentioned. We can process and sell some, but we have a bunch of it. We're looking at 2 types of technology right now in order to deal with that. One is we might shred it and mix it in with a compost. We'll see. That's pretty expensive. The equipment's expensive, but technology is available. Second was that we could incinerate the materials, particularly the mixed paper, and it creates a charcoal type product. That can also be composted, but we also may be able to use it for nitrogen removal and some of the influent at like our biomarkers plant. So all those are underway right now. We're working on that. Randy he should have taken credit for that because he's always ahead of me. The bottom line is those are 2 technologies we're looking at to deal with the paper that we have. If we can't get rid of it, we're going to find another way to use it. Compost is certainly a way, but we may also be able to use it for some type of like a biofilter with charcoal. So we're looking at that, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you very much to all of the staff for giving those wonderful operational reports. We really appreciate all of you. And it's really fun when you end with Randy, Randy, Randy. Nothing further, any board communication? Nope.
Got one.
Oh. Dr. Walker.
I just want to say that after hearing from all of these department and division heads today and last month, I am just really impressed by the people we have and by the work that they and we as an organization are doing. I wish everyone and every member of the public could sit through this. I think if they did, there would be far less complaining and conspiracy theories and so forth going on about ECUA. To me, this is just just a beautiful thing to get these reports and see the many creative things that are, the good, solid work that's being done, has been done, is being done, and the creative ideas that staff members have for improving even more on the work that we do. I'm just very, very proud of this entire organization.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Benson.
And I echo that, but, you know, there were a couple of people who came up here that I never call. And I'm thinking, why am I not needing to call you? I need to lay off of Randy for a while.
Yeah, I think I have speed dial. My husband, my son, Steve, Randy, and Stacy. All right, thank you very much. We are adjourned.